My name is Alex. I'm 28 years old. And up until about a year ago, I would have told you I was the most average, boring guy alive. I work from home as a software engineer. I live alone in a small townhouse just outside Richmond, Virginia, and my life has always followed a routine. I'm not a party guy. I don't date much. I don't even really hang out with people outside of a small Discord group I game with. My life was clean, quiet, predictable, and I liked it that way. It was around mid-April when this all started. I remember the exact day because it was right after I'd pulled an all-nighter to meet a client deadline. I had gone to bed at 6 a.m. and woken up groggy, still in my hoodie, with coffee already cold on the desk. That night, I decided to unplug early and just chill. No work, no calls, just some dumb YouTube rabbit hole, maybe a frozen pizza. Sometime around 10:40 p.m., my phone buzzed. Not a notification, a call. I glanced at it and saw an unfamiliar number. 10 digits. No name. Not spam likely. Just numbers. I let it ring out. I don't answer calls from strangers. I mean, who does? Especially not that late. About 5 minutes later, I got a voicemail notification. Now, this is where it gets weird. I almost never check voicemails, but something about this one gnawed at me. I opened it and listened. At first, there was nothing. Just silence. Then, maybe 3 seconds in, I heard a faint scraping sound. It was low, distant, like nails dragging across a rough surface. Not loud enough to be intentional, but enough to raise goosebumps on my arms. Then there was a click, and the message ended. I replayed it twice. No voices, no breathing, just that scratching sound. I told myself it was probably a butt dial. Maybe someone set their phone down on a rough table. It didn't really make sense, but I was tired and didn't care enough to overthink it. The next night, at almost the exact same time, another call. Same number. Same silence. Only this time, I answered. When I picked up the second call, I half expected some scammer to start yelling about my car's extended warranty. But instead, there was silence again. No background noise, not even the faint hum of a call connection. Just emptiness. For a few seconds, I thought maybe the call had dropped. Then I heard it. It was a whisper, barely audible, like someone speaking from across a large room. I leaned in instinctively, trying to make it out. At first, it was just a low murmur, like someone talking to themselves. But then I heard something clearly. My name, not shouted, not even spoken, whispered. Slowly, deliberately. Alex ... I froze. My throat went dry. There's this feeling when something happens that your brain can't logically explain. It's like your body gets cold from the inside out. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, phone pressed to my ear, heart racing. Then came that same scraping sound. Closer this time. Slower. Like metal on concrete. Then, click. Call ended. I stared at the screen for a while. My first thought was that someone I knew was playing a prank. But who? I don't have the kind of friends who pull creepy jokes like that. And I live alone. I double-checked my call history. Same number. I Googled it again. Still nothing. No forums, no reviews, no business listing. That night, I barely slept. Every time the house creaked, I sat up and listened. My mind kept going back to that whisper. The way they said my name, like they'd known me for years. Like they were standing right next to me. The next day, I was exhausted. I drank twice as much coffee as usual and couldn't concentrate on work. Around noon, I got another call. Same number. This time, I let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, I checked the message. This time, there was more. The voicemail started with silence again, then the whisper returned. My name, again. But not just once. Over and over. Alex. Alex? Alex. Each time it was spoken, it got a little louder, a little more strained, almost like it hurt them to say it. Then something new. Another voice. Deeper. Not whispering, growling. It said just one word. Why? And then the same scraping sound, but now it was followed by a different sound. A low thump. Like something heavy being dropped onto wood. My body was on edge. I replayed that message 5, 6 times. I couldn't stop. I was trying to pick apart the sounds, the background, anything that might give me a clue. But there was nothing identifiable. Just those 2 voices. And that noise. At this point I was scared, but also pissed off. Someone was messing with me. I posted about it in a few online forums, subreddits. Most people told me to block the number and move on. One guy even joked that I was about to be in the next horror movie. Huh. Very funny. I blocked the number. That night, I didn't get any calls, but I got a text from a different number, different area code, no name. The message just said, "Blocking me won't help." I stared at that text for a long time. My first instinct was denial. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe someone spoofing numbers. Maybe it was automated. But deep down, I knew better. It felt intentional. It felt targeted. I didn't respond. I just locked my phone, tossed it onto the couch, and sat in silence. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't open my laptop. I just sat there, trying to hear anything in my house that shouldn't be there. Around 1:30 a.m., I got another message. "I see you're still awake." I dropped the phone. My hands were sweating, heart racing. I didn't have any windows open. The blinds were down. Lights off. How would anyone know I was awake? I went through the house room by room, checking every lock. I live in a 2-story townhouse, and the back of the house faces an empty wooded area, just trees and shadows. There's a small deck out back, but I don't even have a grill or furniture on it. I stood by the back door for a long time, just watching. I couldn't see anything, but I had that feeling, like someone was watching me. You know that weird pressure you feel on the back of your neck when you're not alone? And then, the phone rang. Not a call this time. FaceTime. It was from a new number. No contact, no caller ID. Just video call blinking on my screen. I hesitated for maybe 2 seconds before answering. The screen went black for a moment, then came into focus. It was me, or rather, a live shot of my own backyard. The angle was from the trees behind my deck, looking in through the sliding glass door. You could see me standing there, phone in hand, frozen. I dropped the phone and ran upstairs. I don't even remember my feet hitting the steps. I just remember slamming my bedroom door and locking it. As if that would help, I crawled into the corner of the room, called 911, and told them someone was outside my house, possibly watching me, possibly trying to break in. My voice was shaky, my sentences jumbled. The dispatcher stayed on the line with me, told me to remain calm, stay in the room, and that officers were on the way. I heard nothing for several minutes. No footsteps, no knocks, just silence. Then, just as the dispatcher said the patrol car had arrived, I heard it. That scraping sound, not from outside, from inside the house. It was faint, but unmistakable, like nails or metal dragging along the wall. Then the sound of a footstep, heavy, slow, deliberate, coming up the stairs. I whispered to the dispatcher, begging them to tell the officers to come in. They said they were approaching the door now. I was shaking so badly I thought I'd drop the phone again. Another footstep, then a knock, but not at the front door. At my bedroom door. 3 soft knocks, then silence. I was frozen. I didn't speak. I barely breathed. Seconds later, I heard voices yelling downstairs. Police. They announced themselves, entered the house, began clearing it room by room. I heard one of them call out, "Clear!" Then again. Clear! Eventually, one of them knocked on the bedroom door and identified himself. I opened the door slowly, and the 2 officers came in, guns lowered, but ready. They asked if I was okay. I nodded. I didn't trust my voice. They had found no one in the house. Front door was locked. Back door was locked. All windows secure. No sign of forced entry. But here's the thing. Muddy footprints were found on the stairs, leading up to the 2nd floor, but none going down. The police stayed for almost an hour. They checked every inch of the house again. Closets, attic, even the crawl space under the stairs. Nothing. No signs of entry. No tools left behind. No fingerprints. Just those muddy, perfectly shaped footprints on the stairs, and a sliding glass door that should have shown smudges, but didn't. Before they left, one of the officers looked at me and said, "Look, we can't explain what happened here, but whatever it is, you should stay somewhere else for a few nights." I took his advice. I packed a duffel bag, drove across town, and stayed with a coworker who owed me a favor. I didn't sleep. Every creak in his house made me flinch. Every phone notification made my heart jump. But for 2 days, nothing. No texts, no calls, no strange sounds. Then, on the 3rd night, I got another message. Same original number. The one I'd blocked. Somehow it went through. "You left the door unlocked." I stared at that sentence so long I thought I might lose my mind. I called the police again. They went to my townhouse, checked every door. Everything was locked. No sign of tampering. They told me it was probably a sick prank. Some tech-savvy creep using spoofed numbers and old photos to scare me. But I never posted a photo of my backyard, or my door, or the inside of my house from that angle. So how did they get the FaceTime shot? I stopped sleeping. I changed my number. I moved out of that townhouse within the month, broke my lease, paid the penalty. It didn't matter. I needed to leave. I switched phones, changed service providers, wiped everything and started fresh. For a while, things felt quiet. I settled into a new place in a different neighborhood. No more calls, no more whispers. I even started to sleep again, until last week. I was going through my new phone settings when I noticed something strange. Under the blocked numbers list, the original number was there again. I never added it. I hadn't even imported old contacts. It just appeared. I tapped to delete it from the block list, just to see what would happen. The moment I did, the phone rang. No ID, no contact, just the call. I didn't answer it, but I did let it go to voicemail. I waited, and a few minutes later, a new message appeared. It was just static at first. Then the whisper returned. This time, it didn't say my name. It just said, "You never should have answered." And then the sound again, that low metallic scrape. But it was louder, closer. I deleted the message. I thought about smashing the phone, throwing it in a lake. But something tells me it wouldn't matter. I don't know what this is. A hacker? A stalker? Something worse? All I know is that whatever this thing is, it called me once. Just once. And that's all it took. My name's Trevor. I'm 31 years old. I work as a wildlife photographer, and I've always been someone who preferred being off the grid. That's probably why I agreed to spend an entire week alone in a lakeside cabin in northern Minnesota last fall. It wasn't a vacation exactly. I was on assignment from a small outdoors magazine to document signs of moose migration before the early snows came in. That meant being up at dawn, long hikes, and sometimes hours of standing still with my camera in hand, waiting for a single shape to move in the trees. The cabin they gave me was pretty bare bones. One bedroom, a creaky kitchen, a fireplace, no Wi-Fi, and most importantly, no cell service. The nearest real town was about 25 miles away, and even that was mostly gas stations, bait shops, and one diner that closed at 6 p.m. sharp. I wasn't complaining. I've done this kind of thing before. Camping in national parks, sleeping in vans, watching the stars alone in places where you can't hear a single car engine for hours. I actually enjoy it. That's the whole point. Get away from the noise. But something about this place felt different. The first few days were normal enough. Quiet. Almost too quiet. No moose sightings, just deer, birds, and once, the flash of a black bear's rear as it vanished into the woods. I spent most of my time hiking and logging trail notes. The nights were cold, but peaceful. The kind of cold where the air actually cracks when you breathe out. I loved it. On the fourth night, I built a fire, made myself some instant chili, and stepped out onto the deck to listen to the wind roll across the lake. That's when I noticed something strange. My phone, which had been sitting inside on the charger all day, was suddenly lit up. A missed call. I stared at it for a second, confused. There was still no service in the cabin. One bar at best, if I stood on a rock halfway up the ridge behind the house. But somehow, I had a missed call from an unknown number. Even weirder, I had a voicemail. I didn't check it right away, and I really wish I never had. I stared at the voicemail notification for a long time. The number was unlisted. No name, no area code I recognized. I didn't even have service. That was the part that really got me. How could I get a voicemail with no reception? I tapped play. At first, there was nothing. Just silence. I thought maybe it was one of those empty messages you sometimes get when someone's pocket dials you. But then I heard something. It was faint, almost like the mic was covered. Just the sound of breathing. Slow, shaky, close. Then something else. A splash. Not a big one, not like someone diving into water. More like something dropping into a lake from a short distance. Then, a low voice. Male. Deep, but almost strained. Like whoever was speaking was cold or in pain. They whispered one word. Help! Then the message ended. I replayed it twice. Same thing every time. Breathing. Splash. Whisper. I checked the call time. 11:12 p.m. I was outside at that time, staring at the stars. I would have heard the phone ring if it had any service. I stood up, suddenly very aware of how alone I was out there. I walked to the edge of the deck and stared out at the lake. It was pitch black. Still. Not even a ripple. The tree line across the water looked like a wall of shadows. There was no moon that night. No boats. No sound. Just a creeping sense that something had changed. Back inside the cabin, I checked the phone again. Still no service. Still one bar flickering in and out if I held it up to the ceiling near the chimney. I tried calling the number back, but it wouldn't even dial. I typed it into Google. Nothing. Not even close matches. I didn't sleep well that night. Kept waking up, swearing I heard something move outside. A branch snapping, or footsteps crunching gravel on the path. But every time I checked, there was nothing. The next morning, I walked down to the lake to check the shore. Maybe an animal had come up from the woods. It wouldn't be the first time I mistook a raccoon for an intruder. But I found something I couldn't explain on the small dock that jutted out into the lake, weathered and half-rotting. Someone had placed a single, soaked boot. Just one. Old, faded brown leather, covered in mud and lake scum, and stuffed inside it was a phone. A flip phone. Ancient. Water damaged. I didn't touch it at first. I stood there staring at it, trying to figure out what kind of messed up joke this was. But there was no one around. No tire tracks. No boat. Eventually, I picked it up. The screen was cracked, but when I opened it, it lit up. Barely. I pressed a few buttons. It lagged, but somehow it was still functioning. There was only one number in the contact list. It was labeled home. I didn't call it. I just held the phone in my hand, cold and wet, heart pounding. Then I went back to the cabin, wrapped it in a towel, and stuck it in a drawer. I tried to go about my day, hike, photograph, log notes, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Later that evening, just before sunset, I found footprints near the side of the cabin. Not mine. They were fresh, damp, leading from the trees directly toward the house, stopping about 10 feet from the bedroom window, and then turning back. But the weirdest part? They were barefoot. That night was the coldest so far. A heavy fog rolled in just after dark, crawling in from the lake and swallowing the trees. I couldn't see more than 5 feet past the cabin's windows. Everything felt muffled, like the world outside was holding its breath. I was sitting by the fireplace, half dozing with my journal in my lap, when my phone buzzed. I sat up fast, a part of me hoping it was a text from the editor, or even a weather alert. But no, it was a notification from the flip phone, the one I'd found in the boot. I hadn't touched it since putting it away. I wasn't even sure it had signal. But there it was, glowing dimly in the drawer. A new voicemail. I didn't want to listen, but of course I did. I put the phone on speaker and hit play. The message started with water, splashing, sloshing, like someone wading through the lake. Then came the sound of panting, labored, heavy breathing. But it wasn't just someone out of breath. It sounded panicked, like they were running. Then a voice. Same as before, low, trembling. He's not gone. The voice was followed by a strange noise, hard to describe. A kind of wet, dragging sound, like something being pulled across soaked ground. Then a sharp gasp, and the final word, whispered so close to the mic it made me flinch. "Look outside." I dropped the phone. For a few seconds I just sat there, frozen. Then, slowly, I turned toward the window. I don't know why I did. I didn't want to. I knew I didn't want to see what might be there. But I looked. At first, nothing. Just fog. Then a shape. A man, standing by the tree line. No coat, no flashlight. Just a pale figure in the mist. His clothes soaked, clinging to his body. He was barefoot. Still. Staring straight at the window. At me. I backed away from the glass slowly, heart in my throat. I wanted to believe it was a lost hiker, or someone from a nearby cabin, but that didn't make sense. There were no nearby cabins. And how would he have left a voicemail? Suddenly, the house felt paper thin. The windows, the walls, the doors, they didn't feel like enough to keep anything out. I grabbed my car keys, tossed on my coat, and made for the front door. That's when the lights went out. Everything. The fireplace glow, the lamp by the couch, even the clock on the microwave, died at once. The only light came from the fog outside, and the glow of the flip phone in my hand. It vibrated again. Another voicemail. I didn't listen to this one. I didn't have to. Because just then, I heard something outside. Not footsteps. Splashing. Heavy footsteps in the water, fast, coming straight from the lake. Then something slammed against the front of the cabin. Not a knock. Not a branch. A full-force impact, like a body hurling itself against the door. I screamed, backed away, holding the phone like it was going to protect me. Then came a voice. Not a whisper this time. A shout, muffled by the wood of the cabin wall. "Open the door, Trevor!" I didn't move. I just stood there in the middle of the dark cabin, staring at the front door, heart thudding so loud it felt like it shook the walls. The voice had come from just feet away. Whoever, whatever, was out there knew my name. I backed away, slow and silent, until I was in the kitchen. I grabbed the biggest knife I could find, a dull, old thing with a cracked handle, but it made me feel a little less helpless. Then, another bang, this time from the back of the house. The door to the deck. It was like someone was circling the cabin, hitting every entry point, testing them. The air inside felt thick, electric, like something was charging toward a moment I couldn't stop. Then the phone buzzed again. That old flip phone. The screen lit up, incoming call. Home. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then it stopped. Another voicemail. I didn't listen. I couldn't. I shoved the phone back in the drawer and ran into the bedroom, locking the door behind me. I pushed a chair under the handle and backed up until my legs hit the bed. And then... silence. No more footsteps. No more banging. Nothing. That might have been the worst part. The waiting. The unknown. I sat there with the knife in my lap, barely blinking, ears straining for any sound. I think I must have fallen asleep at some point. When I woke up, it was morning. Light was pouring in through the curtains. The fog had lifted. I cautiously crept through the house. Everything looked untouched. No broken windows. No damaged doors. Just a few wet footprints on the wooden deck, leading toward the house, and never back out. I packed my things in record time, grabbed my gear, keys, food, everything. I didn't care about the final few days of the assignment. I was done. I drove straight to the nearest ranger station, explained that I'd heard something outside the cabin, thought someone might be hurt or lost. I left out the voicemails, the phone. I didn't want to sound insane. One of the rangers offered to drive back out with me. I told him no thanks. I just wanted to go home. He said they'd send someone to check the cabin out later. That night, in the safety of my apartment, heat on, lights on, doors locked, I pulled the flip phone out of my duffel bag. I don't even remember packing it. But there it was. I hesitated, then opened it. Still working. I checked the last voicemail. It had automatically downloaded. I hit play. It was different. No water, no whispers, just breathing. Slow, deep, measured. Then the sound of a door creaking open. Not slamming, not kicked. Just slowly, gently pushed inward. Then came the voice again. Calm this time. Familiar. You should have stayed. We weren't done yet. The message ended. I tried turning the phone off. It wouldn't shut down. I pulled the battery out and threw it in the trash. The next morning, when I opened my apartment door to leave for work, there was a single wet footprint on the hallway carpet. Bare. Human. Facing my door. My name is Kayla. I'm 24, and I live in Portland, Oregon. I work from home, freelance graphic design mostly, which means I spend a lot of time in my apartment. Alone. My place is nothing fancy. Just a 1-bedroom unit on the 3rd floor of an old converted townhouse. Hardwood floors, ancient plumbing, paper-thin walls. It creaks when it's windy and moans when it's too cold. But I like it. It's cozy. Safe. Or at least, it used to be. This started 2 months ago. I was working late on a logo for a client, music playing low in the background, when my phone buzzed next to the laptop. It was almost midnight. The screen lit up with a number I didn't recognize. Local area code, but no contact saved. Normally, I'd ignore it. But something about the timing, the late hour, the silence around me, made me pause. I stared at the screen until it stopped ringing. A second later, I got a voicemail. I figured it was just a wrong number. People still call landlines around here and sometimes get redirected. I opened the message and pressed play without thinking. It was a woman's voice. Calm. Software. Almost a whisper. Is this Kayla? My heart skipped. I listened closer. Kayla. If you can hear me, don't answer the door. That was it. The message ended. I just sat there for a second, staring at the phone like it had said something else. Some prank, maybe. A weird coincidence. I was seconds away from deleting it when someone knocked on my door. 3 soft knocks. No one was supposed to be here. I froze. For a long second, I just sat there in my chair, heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I stared at the door across the room like it might explode open. The knock hadn't been loud. It was almost polite. But in that moment, it felt deafening. I muted my music. Silence, then. Another knock, same rhythm. 3 slow taps. I got up carefully, stepping around the creaky spot in the floor, and approached the door as quietly as I could. I peeked through the peephole. No one, just the empty hallway and the flickering light above the stairwell. I waited, holding my breath. Still nothing. No footsteps, no movement, not even that distant hum of city life you usually get through the walls. I turned back toward the living room, and my phone buzzed again. Another voicemail. Same number. No new call, just a voicemail. I didn't hear it ring. Hands shaking, I hit play. This time, the woman sounded different. Her voice trembled slightly. "Kayla, he's in the hallway. He's listening." I dropped the phone. For a few minutes, I couldn't move. I just sat on the couch, hands gripping my knees, staring at the door like it was a live thing. Eventually, I picked up the phone again and tried calling the number back. This number is not in service. Of course it wasn't. I barely slept that night. I left every light in the apartment on and huddled under a blanket on the couch with a kitchen knife. No more knocks, no more voicemails, nothing but the creaks of the building and the occasional car outside. The next day, I tried to brush it off. Maybe it was a prank. A very weird, very well-timed prank. I wanted to believe that. I even told myself I probably dreamed the second message. But when I checked my phone, it was there. Both messages. Time-stamped. Logged. I played them again. Same voice. Same warning. That night, I made sure the door was locked. Deadbolt engaged. Chain on. I even slid a chair under the knob, just in case. Around 2 a.m., I was dozing on the couch again when I woke up to the sound of a ringing phone. But it wasn't mine. It was coming from the hallway. I stood up, confused, and walked to the door. I put my ear against it and listened. The ringtone was distant, muffled, like an old flip phone, but it was definitely ringing just outside. Then it stopped. Silence. Then, another knock. 3 slow, measured taps. I backed away from the door. My hands were cold. I grabbed my phone and called the police. They said they'd send a unit. I waited near the window, peeking through the blinds, until I saw the red and blue glow wash over the street. The officer came up, checked the hallway, knocked on my door. I let him in. There was nothing out there. No one. But when he stepped back into the hall, his foot knocked something over. An old cell phone. Flip model. Scuffed. Dirty. Like it had been dropped or left outside for a long time. Wasn't mine. He picked it up with a pen and dropped it into an evidence bag. He asked if I wanted to file a report. I said yes, but I could tell from the look on his face. He thought I was overreacting. After he left, I sat back down on the couch and checked my phone again. There was a new voicemail. Same number. Don't let them take the phone. That last message knocked the air out of my lungs. Don't let them take the phone. I sat there staring at the screen, fingers hovering above the delete button, but I couldn't press it. It felt like deleting the message would somehow make things worse, like it would confirm that I didn't want to listen. I tried telling myself it didn't make sense. Them? Who were they talking about? The police? The man knocking at my door? Myself? I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I kept the lights on, TV volume low, and my phone in my hand. I kept thinking I'd wake up and the whole thing would just be gone. But the next morning, the phone was still there. And there was a new voicemail, only this time there was no call record. No number. No alert. It just appeared, sitting in my voicemail list like it had always been there. I played it. It started with static, loud, sharp, disorienting. Then the voice returned. He's inside now. I dropped the phone and ran to my front door. Still locked. Chain in place. Chair under the knob. I walked back into the kitchen, and that's when I heard something. Breathing. Not mine. Coming from the hallway, but not the hallway outside. The hallway inside my apartment. Just beyond the kitchen, where the bedroom and bathroom were. I held my breath and slowly crept forward. My entire body was ice. Every part of me wanted to run, but I couldn't. I couldn't move, couldn't blink, just listened. The breathing got louder, heavier. It sounded wet, guttural, like someone had water in their lungs, or like they were trying not to sob. And then, from somewhere deep in the apartment, I heard a voice, the same voice from the voicemails. "Kayla?" You let him in. The light in the hallway flickered, and then went out completely. I screamed and ran for the front door, yanked the chain, threw the lock, tore the chair aside. Just as I opened the door to run into the hallway, he was standing there. Not outside. Inside. He was tall, pale, soaked, like he'd just stepped out of a lake. His hair hung in wet strands over his face. His eyes, they weren't angry. They weren't even cruel. They were sad, like he didn't want to be here either. Then, from the floor near his feet, the flip phone started ringing. It was mine now, somehow, and on the tiny, cracked screen, it said, "Incoming call." "Kayla." The phone kept ringing. "Incoming call, Kayla." I didn't move. I couldn't. The man, the soaked, silent figure standing in the middle of my apartment, didn't either. He just stared at me with that hollow sadness in his eyes, like he'd been waiting for a long time. The phone rang again, my name, flashing again and again across the broken screen. I finally found the strength to move. I backed away from him, step by step, never breaking eye contact. My heel hit the door, and I slid out into the hallway, still facing him, still watching. He didn't follow. He didn't speak. He just pointed down at the phone. Then the screen went black, and he vanished. I didn't mean that metaphorically. I mean it literally. He was just gone. 1 second there, the next. Not. No footsteps. No sound. Just me in the hallway, shaking. I didn't go back into my apartment that night. I stayed with a friend, tried to explain what happened, left out the voicemails, the man, the calls to myself. Just said someone had broken in. Maybe it was trauma. Maybe stress. That's what I wanted to believe. But later that night, my friend fell asleep on the couch, and I was alone in her guest room. I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing little sounds, creaks in the floorboards, the wind brushing against the windows. At 3:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. A new voicemail. No number, just a message. I stared at it for a long time before pressing play. It was my voice. I was whispering, "Don't let them find the phone. Whatever you do, don't answer when he calls from your name." The message ended. I stared into the dark. I don't know what the phone is. I don't know who the man was. I don't know how he knew my name, my number, my face, my voice. But I do know one thing, wherever he came from, he's not done with me. And now, I keep getting these calls from numbers I don't recognize. Some of them show my own name. Some of them leave voicemails I don't remember recording. And every time I answer, he gets closer.